dominating performance at North Wilkesboro from Matthew Thunhorst, the battle for the title has become a nail-biter. After 3 races, 4 drivers are in the conversation for this season's championship. The question is, which driver will gain momentum tonight for their quest for a BRL crown? We're about to find out on the Global SimRacing Channel. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the virtual Five Flags Speedway for the 4th race of Season 7 for the Bootleg Racing League's Grand National Series, presented by Gargamel's Kitchen. I'm Justin Prince. Alongside of the booth tonight is Devin Henry. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Let's take the opportunity to learn about tonight's race with our GSRC track guide for Five Flags Speedway.
Welcome to Five Flags. This half-mile paved oval opened in 1953. Five Flags Speedway takes its name from its proximity to Pensacola, Florida. Pensacola, Florida is known as the City of Five Flags, which references the fact that it is 5 governments that have ruled the city. Five Flags is one of the fastest short tracks in America, thanks in part to its 15 degrees of banking and the wide turns that give the track a nearly circular configuration. You never have a chance to rest at Five Flags with the speeds that you carry and the close quarters that you always find yourself in. Five Flags is also very bumpy. Managing the bumps is one of the keys to victory here. Turn 1 is tricky. You carry a lot of momentum off of turn 4, and you have to try to roll the car down and get down into the corner. And the fastest way around the track is about 4 inches away from that pit wall. Things happen fast at Five Flags, with most of the lap times averaging around the 16-second mark. Fast track, fast cars, amazing action. All of these are what Five Flags is known for, and just the type of racing that you are going to see today. So stay tuned, buckle in, and enjoy the race.
That was a look at your GSRC track guide for Five Flags Speedway. Now let's bring my broadcast partner for tonight, Devin Henry, as we get ready to go racing under the lights here tonight. Your thoughts on these cars for this track tonight?
Well, you gotta love this classic, playful little bowl, this half-mile track, Five Flags. It brings a little bit of chaos because throughout this race, you're going to find drivers have some different braking zones, maybe even some different acceleration zones once you get to the middle of the corner, but 15 degrees in the corners, 9 degrees on the straightaways. You always feel like you're a little bit turned, even though these straightaways are longer than some of the other bowl-like tracks. But one thing that you always have to watch when you come to Five Flags is how close to the edge you get. And by the edge, I mean the inside edge, because about half the corner of the wall is literally right next to that inside lane. So sometimes things can go from bad to worse by just a little error with those walls thrown in the mix. A few different ways to get yourself a little bit topsy-turvy here at this little bowl of Five Flags Speedway.
It's going to be a fun night of action, to say the very least. The question is, which drivers will come out on top? Now let's take the opportunity to mention our title sponsor for the BRL's Grand National Series, Gargamel's Kitchen. Gargamel's Kitchen is a food-grade nitrous oxide provider located in Denver, Colorado, and a proud sponsor of the Bootleg Racing League's Grand National Series. Visit their office at 2045 South Valentia Street or give them a call at 720-707-6178. Right now, drivers in the midst of practice, but it's in the midst of a close championship battle where we turn things to next, because it is very tight, to say the very least. At the top of the standings, after 3 races, there are 3 different winners: J.R. Shepard, Justin Morton, Matthew Thunhorst. All those drivers 1 point up east separate each of them in the standings. Austin Belke is also within range, averaging a 4th place finish on the season. He is in P4 with 110 total points, 7 points back overall, while Donnie Moore and Lowell Jewell round out the top 5, tied for that position with 98 total scored points. And in turn, Devin, that brings us to our race details, which are going to be very critical for this evening.
And just like every single week here in the Grand National Series, 100 laps around this half mile, but not a single tire change. The rubber that you start this race on is the rubber that you have to end the race on. Race pace and race strategy is oh so important all race long. And then, of course, you do get one mulligan. If anything bad does happen to you, You do get that one fast repair down on pit road, but that is all the redos that you get. It does not change your tires when you get a fast repair either. And also no qualifying. Our grid is set from last week's finishing order, and last week's top 8 gets inverted at the front of the field as well.
That was an exciting race, to say the very least, in North Wilkesboro Speedway. We'll discuss that a little bit later on. As these drivers in the midst of final practice, it's Adam Shane, who is in a tie with J.R. Shepard at the top of the board, in fact, with a 16.923. James Lowe with a 16.924 third in practice. Kurt Smith, Matthew Thunhorst, the current top 5 in session. And as you can tell, grip levels are going to be very intriguing to try and make sure drivers don't get loose into these corners.
And it's not going to be crazy tonight. You saw that gorgeous sunset right when we started this broadcast, and as the night continues on here in sim, the track will cool down a bit. It's only 74 degrees air temperature in the sim. That means only a 77-degree track temperature, so they're not going to be just throwing haymakers against some really slick, hot tracks. So you can kind of take that out of the equation. But Five Flags still eats up tires just as well. It is still very aggressive against you when you hit that throttle. The rear tires love to slide out even when they're fresh when you come to Five Flags. So even though that the weather won't work against you tonight, you still have your regular Five Flags battle that you have to face. Also, 61% humidity, that's not terrible. It's definitely not good for anyone who's ever been in 61% humidity for long periods of time, but because we're only on a half mile, it's really not going to affect the cars that much. So weather not a big issue. Having to face Five Flags, though, yeah, that's just the typical issue here.
Indeed. By the way, a couple things to note. One driver did get a warning for last race, Kurt Smith, for going into the corner too hot for an incident involving wrecking an error machine. So he's got a warning to think about for tonight as well. A couple drivers unable to make it due to various factors. Ryan Seneca in particular is currently hosting a birthday party with a dozen or so children right now. And it's our understanding that they are watching along with today's action. We'd like to welcome them to today's coverage of the BRL's Grand National Series here at Five Flags Speedway. It's going to be intriguing in turn, though, how these competitors fare out on the long run, because we've seen this track can eat up the tires very quickly.
Yeah, and I don't know what's more of a handful, having a dozen kids at a birthday party or having to deal with these tires for 100 laps. And you know, Justin, the worst part about a track like Five Flags is with how simple it is to really wear out those rear tires by sliding. If you slide even the slightest bit too much, and like you mentioned, go on a long green flag run, the temperatures in those rear tires go through the roof. And when you're at a track like this, you have corners that are so long and so wide sweeping so quickly every single straightaway at this track, you never get a chance to cool those rear tires back down. They get hotter and hotter and wear more and more, and as the run goes on, then you're just fighting a demon of a race car around these corners. It doesn't take very long for these tires, once lit up, to wear down and give you a heaping of trouble. So, as you mentioned, that's going to be a massive case of who will win this race, who is going to defend your rear tires the best tonight as we go on these long runs.
Following along with Kurt Smith, by the way, throughout all that, as some great points indeed, Devin, that these drivers are going to need to be aware of for tonight. But last time out, as referenced at the top of the show, Matthew Thunhorst had a very dominant performance. 99 of 100 laps led over at North Wilkesboro Speedway. Immediately took the lead, lap 2, turn 1, and was just able to dictate that entire pace on the long run.
And I expect him to be another massive player here tonight. You go back to the last time that the Grand National Series ran here at Five Flags last season, he started 15th, got his way up to the front with 3/4 of the race completed. So from 15th to 1st, still led 24 laps and had to get around Justin Morton, who was dominating that race as well. So Matthew Thunhorst now in the Grand National Series has picked up a pair of wins in his career. I'm expecting more dominance to come and more battles to come here tonight. Of course, he has to start about mid-pack because of that field invert as well. But like last season, there's nothing new when it comes to trying to run around a bunch of cars here at Five Flags.
It's Been some intriguing times, to say the very least, here at Five Flags Speedway. Remember the last time we were here, there were a couple major incidents, especially in turns 3 and 4. You definitely don't want to get involved in trouble here, and it's so easy to get said trouble. Remember, there were drivers sending it nearly into the grass with how some of the moves fared out into turn 3 in the early goings of the last time we were here.
Evasive actions, that was the name of the game. 10 cautions for 45 laps. You get that one fast repair, but at a track like Five Flags, it's so easy to get collected in somebody else's mess. And when that happens, of course, you got to go back to the tail end of the field. And what happens? Well, then there's other messes that you have to get around, and it becomes this uphill battle from the very beginning of the race when you have the events like we had the last time that we were out here and had 10 cautions. So you never want to have that choice, make that choice of when do I need to pull out this fast repair out of my back pocket. But there has to be thoughts in your mind. If this car, so long as it's driving straight and we're not past halfway yet, do I have to get a fast repair right now? Because it is so easy, especially when these tires get so old and you have to adapt to what your car is giving you. Sometimes you just have to make the decision, do I really need a fast repair right now? Because if I need it with 25 to go and I don't have it anymore, that could be the end of your race right there.
You definitely don't want to end up having a situation where you have to depend on that fast repair indeed. Closing stages of practice here. Who are the drivers you're keeping your eye on the most here tonight to perform at Five Flags?
Well, obviously, we talked about Matthew Thunhorst. He got his first career win in the Grand National Series here last season. Look for him to have another great night coming off of his second career win in the series. Adam Shane, of course, at the top of the board. That's going to be a name to watch. We've seen him have speed, but not always put a full race together. Will this be the night that he is able to do that? James Lowe, haven't necessarily seen him week in and week out, but of course coming off of a phenomenal run last season and has the second most wins in Grand National Series history. He's third on the practice board right now. Can he make that jump and get to victory lane? And then, of course, J.R. Shepard, tied atop the practice board right now. When it comes to protecting that right front, J.R. Shepard is the guy to watch, the guy to take the notes off of. Can he do it tonight here? He was not in attendance for our previous race at Five Flags. Can he go back to victory lane here at this track and find his way back to victory lane, take a hold of this championship run?
All very good questions to see how these drivers fare out indeed for tonight's race. It's all going to be intriguing to say the very least as we're approaching the final few moments of practice here at Five Flags. It's going to be intriguing indeed, especially with how tight those times at the top of the board for practice were. How about still the top 3 covered by 1/1000th of a second? That's how tight the pace could be, especially when you put James Lowe into the bunch after his successful season last campaign. But the drivers will now get ready to make their way towards their cars for tonight's action here for the BRL's Grand National Series, presented by Gargamel's Kitchen. In sim time, just past 8 p.m. on iRacing Day, May 15, 2021, as these drivers are now all set to go racing. It's Mike Holloway who will bring them to the green flag tonight, with Todd Liston and Austin Belke, along with Justin Morden inside your top 4 positions. J.R. Shepard will start in 5th position, with Matthew Thunhorst in 6th position, Donnie Moore in 7th, Joe Sagawa with a solid starting position 8th, Adam Shane, Bruce Pearson round out your top 10. 3R drivers in the field tonight. Kurt Smith, James Lowe, Brian Dean are those respective competitors. And already all the cars have made their way to the starting grid. Devin, your keys to victory for tonight.
You have to be conservative on entry. I'm not saying do it every single lap. I'm not saying that you have to be conservative all race long, because obviously, eventually, you need to make the move to make moves for passes. I say it every week that you have to be patient, but conservative tonight is going to be a different key on corner entry, to not wear out the right rear. We focus so much, Justin, on the right front, but tonight I'm specifically looking at who has the ability to keep that right rear in check, so they have some very strong takeoffs later in the race, and of course have the most aggression and the most ability to maneuver the car later on in the race, I think that right rear becomes more vital throughout the run.
That maneuverability is going to be extremely important in case there is trouble indeed as well. So now, it's the matter of which driver can come away with the checkered flag tonight. We're about to find out. Again, it's Mike Holloway in control of the field to start things off this evening. And keep in mind, Austin Belke, among the drivers who was on the aggressive the last time we were here. iRacing pace car is off. Green flag is out. We're underway from Florida. And a great start for Holloway and Liston. They keep it side by side into 3 and 4. Liston tries to round it up on the high side. Slipping around as Morton forced to check up. Thought about it, taking it 3.
Now, when this track is this cool, you can use the outside lane to defend, but unfortunately, Liston there stepped about an extra groove and a half outside of where you needed to be. A great launch for the 87, but now Austin Belke using that inside lane, looking to take away P2 and that throwback Pepsi machine of former driver Jeff Gordon.
Able to round that bottom to nearly clear on by, but it's Holloway who breaks away for now. The bottom line is the key line to get around here. J.R. Shepard using that line to get around Morton, and now around Liston, who's in the wall.
Might have had some contact there. That was a very tight meeting with the wall, and Liston slides all the way back into the 7th position, but Mike Holloway loving this out front. Able to get a little bit of a gap with Austin Belke, but something that none of these drivers ever want to see this early in the race. J.R. Shepard already up to P3.
Matthew Thunhorse is trying to keep up with him right now, going for 4th position on the inside of Donnie Moore. Justin Morton shuffled -2. Liston already a -5 in the first 5+ laps, now on lap 6. Not the night he wanted to start things off, as things are heating up for 2nd position just up the road as well. Austin Belke shuffled up by J.R. Shepard in the battle for 2nd.
And you can already see the gap here, the top 3 with a little bit of space between Belke and Thunderhorse, but the fact that J.R. Shepard's already maneuvered his way into the 2nd position, starting to reel in that rear bumper of Mike Holloway. Rocking the black here tonight with some MAV TV on it, and unfortunately some updates for Kurt Smith. He got loose off of turn number 3. He got stuck in the tire that barricades the wall on pit road entry. He had to tow, unfortunately, so that might be the end of Kurt Smith's night. He was running just outside the top 5.
Tough break for Kurt Smith, who was very quick in practice. He was among the top 5 drivers for much of that session. And now, coming up to the start of lap 10 this time by, top 4 covered by 0.6 of a second, but Shepard wants to be the leader. To the inside of Holloway, rounds around the bottom of the racetrack. Gets the pull off of turn 2, moved J.R. Shepard in the Different Path Motorsports machine to the race lead.
That number 98 is in a completely different world right now than the rest of this field. He had that much speed coming off of turn 4, running the exact same line as Mike Holloway, Austin Belke. Those are all guys that he has passed up front, and now he's running a different line through 3 and 4, and unfortunately Holloway getting stuck in the black hole, stuck on the outside. Thunderhorse goes around for 3rd, and now at risk of losing 4th to Justin Morton.
Matthew Thunhorse indeed clears on by. Morton now able to get to the inside and take advantage as well. And I've noticed they're really hitting these bumps pretty hard around this racetrack, really weaving and bobbling around in these corners as Morton is clear.
And on board with Justin Morton, you can feel the bumps in iRacing, especially if you have your settings high enough. It's just very, very jerky to the wheel. And as you can see right now, this is something that I think I will never do. You're watching Justin Morton inside of his own house, running his sim rig right now. You see the goggles, those are VR headsets. So what we are seeing right now on screen is about exactly what he is seeing on those VR headsets. And VR scares me because I get in too many wrecks, I think personally, to be able to figure that out. I'd get car sick all day long, but Morton with the VR headset right now, rocking his way in P4. He's got a little bit of gap, though, to make up to find his way back in the top 3.
Absolutely. Speaking of that top 3, all season we've seen the top 3 breakaway feature Shepard, Thunhorst, and Morton. It's different tonight. Austin Belke, he's performed well here in the past. He's performing very well in the early going here this evening as Thunhorst is all over his back bumper.
And Austin Belke has done so well improving season in and season out. You see that 24 car become more consistent every single season. And even though we are just 3 races in, he still has himself in that hunt for this championship. 2 guys that he needs to beat are, well, I guess now one is getting by him as he ends up losing the inside lane, but Thunhorst goes by. But the 24 has to continue racing hard with the 8, and of course the 9 now behind him as well. He is racing with the guys that he needs to beat and has to find that extra gear in him to get better finishes, beat these guys, and maybe bring home a top 3 in the championship point standings come the end of the season.
Looking from above in that battle for the race lead, and now it gets intriguing with Thunhorst in second position. How do you play this if you're Matthew? You're already 81 laps to go, this time by the stripe. Still plenty of time to make a move, but how do you try and plan things out to make sure you don't burn up your stuff, but also keep yourself within range to be able to pounce at any moment?
Well, right now I'm just taking notes because J.R. Shepard is the best when it comes down to saving tires. 46 career wins in the Grand National Series. The next guy behind him only has 9. This guy is the best of the best, but to your point, Justin, probably the most important part is keep him in reach. You can try different things to keep your tires well. You can try different things to find the speed that JR is finding, but you can't experiment too much and lose the rear bumper of the 98. Right now, Thunhorst doing a great job actually reeling in that rear forward blue oval of J.R. Shepard, able to keep a nice little gap between him and the 98, but you don't need to make the move right now, Justin. That's the key. So much race left to go until you think that you have a move that you can make, or until you think that you have a better tire than J.R. Shepard. There's no need to force anything right now unless you think you definitely have the faster car and want to get the 98 behind you, because that's not something that we see very often in this league, is someone passing the 98 and keeping them behind them.
That's also very difficult indeed, as Thunhorst pick up a little bit of ground, was quicker last time by compared to Shepard. They have been nearly matching times to the 1,000th. That's how tight those competitors have been. Austin Belke has been in the same boat, putting himself in the same range as Thunhorst in particular. So those drivers doing a very stellar job so far. Justin Morton currently holding on in front of Mike Holloway for rounding out the top 5. James Lolofno is up 4 positions as well. He holds on to the final inversion spot at the moment.
Yeah, James Lowe had to start a little bit further back, but I'm surprised that orange number 99 has not had the ability to kind of streak through the field a little bit more. Stuck back in the 8th position. He's about another 3/4 of a second behind Adam Shane, and he can barely even see these two duking it out right now. I'm expecting that 99 to maybe be saving a little bit of tires, expecting a caution maybe later on, but he's not really running at that pace that we're used to him running, although he is starting to close in a little bit tighter on the times ran by these top 2 drivers.
Yeah, looking at the stopwatch, he is actually, in the past 10 laps, been within 7 1,000ths of a second low to the pace of these top 3. Shepard a little bit slower this time of the corner exit. Matthew Thunhorst getting a run to the inside. Shepard tries to squeeze, able to check up Thunhorst and hold on to the point.
Taking another peek, really taking a much different line on corner entry than the 98. And when you have these long green flag runs, there's not a ton of cars in this race, and you know that there's only one guy that you have to beat. This turns into an excruciatingly long game of chess. So the 8 sees right now, I'm faster on exit. Oh, almost makes contact maybe with the 98 there. He's really experimenting there on corner entry. Gonna lose a lot of time here after that contact. So this just turns into a giant game of chess. I'm faster here. I'm slower here. What can I change to fix this? Am I burning my stuff up too much? on board with the driver of the 8, Matthew Thunhorse. All questions going through your head as you continue to experiment. The 8 looks like the faster car right now. He always gains back up on JR after he falls off. So I think the 8 has speed, but that might also be JR Shepherd setting the pace right now and just kind of relaxing a little bit.
Can confirm, by the way, they did make contact in that close call we seen on that move just a couple laps ago. Thunhorse really trying to get the run off the corner. Looking like he's having a battle of looseness on the corner exit, though, as he's getting back on the throttle. And that's the tough part we see with some of these movements, to try and make sure he doesn't have to snap that wheel to the right to try and overcorrect.
And that's the key when you come to a track like Five Flags. You kind of have banking all over the corner, so everything is kind of pointed inward towards the wall. And as these tires continue to wear out on the rears of these cars and it gets looser and has less grip, you have to figure out, where's the line? Where's the line of getting on the gas too soon, on the gas too much even? And then if I do get sideways, where's the line of how much correction can I put into it? Because the only thing that's more frustrating than putting in too much throttle in it spinning around is saving it and then overcorrecting and turning it around into the wall. Those are all self-errors at the end of the day, and there's nothing more frustrating than not finding that edge that you need to be on to have the speed to keep up with the pace being set by these top 2 drivers. Don't
forget, if anything boils over between these top 2, Austin Belke is keeping within 7/10 of these drivers. Put himself within spitting distance, within 5 car lengths in particular to these top 2. So there is that opportunity as Thunhorse this time starting a match line for line with Shepherd, about a half lane up through 3 and 4 that time. This time takes the higher arc in turns 1 and 2, trying to dime the corner. Yeah, he's really been cutting off the corner of turn number 2. And what happens there is when you lose time on entry, you gain it back on exit, and you even come off the corner lower than the car in front of you. He's kind of peaked to try to find that left rear quarter panel a couple of times, but hasn't been able to make that pace to set the car there. But I've seen him do a couple of different maneuvers in the corners, even here running a little bit higher, and the 98 actually moved at the track a smidge as well. He's really trying different things. At the end of the day, Justin, you know this, you can't pass someone if you're running the same line as them. You have to find somewhere to pass them. So some more experimentation happening here by the 8. Again, still a lot of racing to go, this time by 59 laps here at Five Flags. As well, keep in mind, Joe Sagawa keeping things very busy with Brian Dean. This battle has been heating up. Dean forced to check up a lot on that corner exit. These guys continue to slide back almost 3 seconds behind the number 26 of Donnie Moore. That 8th position is the provisional pole due to the top 8 invert for next week. But hey, you can't pass 8th if you're not in 9th, right? So Brian Dean working on Joe Segala. They're plenty far behind Donnie Moore, but this side-by-side battle going to make a difference if we do get a caution here. Dean definitely with the preferred line, able to make up a little bit of speed. Move the 23 up to 9th. Nice smooth move for Joe Segala. As well, 6th position is heating up because James Lowe was in 8th before, passed Donnie Moore, and now he's caught up to Adam Shane. Shane, remember, very quick on the short run in practice earlier on tonight, but Lowe still matching the lap time pace as the race leaders just about. And I love this pace set by James Lowe, not just because he's matching your leaders JR Shepherd and Matthew Thunhorse, but because he's not overdoing it. Right now, he is just running his own race. He continues to pick drivers off, started this race in the 12th position, now looking to move up to 6th. That's almost half the field and about half of the race. So he's just been patient, set his marks, set his times. He knows how fast he needs to be going, but he really doesn't look like he's overdriving the car and has that over sense of urgency that's going to hinder him once we get later in the race. As Shane gets sideways off of turn number 2. Down and into the wall. Scraping the inside wall as he stays straight, we stay green. And absolutely just stepped out from him coming off of turn 2 into the inside wall in the Armco. And when someone like James Lowe is setting that pace that the 99 is behind the 65 here,
if you're Shane, you try to run that same pace, and sometimes you don't have the same throttle marks down. Got a little bit high on exit there, might have gotten the gas too soon. Still a very good save. Unfortunately, though, a lot of contact with that inside wall, and he loses a plethora of positions.
He ends up coming down the pit lane and uses fast repairs. We are coming up to halfway this upcoming time by Shane. Has now lost a few laps. The leader's now passing by him a second time. They also have traffic building up in front of them and Todd Liston. They are reaching their first lap traffic of the race. Cross legs up in the air, that time by.
Boy, and Mike Holloway is still hounding the rear bumper of Justin Morton. These two really haven't fallen too far outside of this top 3 grouping. But I tell you what, if I'm Justin Morton, I wouldn't be too comfortable because Mike Holloway keeps putting that Nav TV front bumper right on that TTR rear bumper. They've been getting a little bit close here, but Justin Morton's still just running a solid pace. They're not too slow, not too fast. He sees the leader still in front of him. And hey, Justin Morton has some fans right now as well. Ryan Seneker says he's got the younger ones going for Justin Morton right now. He's got the oldest. He's a Thunhorse fan. So right now, the Seneker family rooting for a couple drivers in 2nd and 4th right now, but not quite where they want to be, all stuck behind J.R. Shepherd. But Ryan, if we still have the audience over there at your house for the birthday party going on and everyone's still watching this race, I need all the kiddos to get up and tell Mr. Seneker who they're rooting for. Everyone up on your feet. I want to hear a little bit of cheering going on as well. So right here is your man Justin Morton with the headset on. He continues to just run a solid pace, but still, you don't love that blue dot of Austin Belke getting a little smaller in front of him.
I can hear some of the cheering from here, in fact. As now you can see how laser focused Morton is behind that wheel. Speaking of the race lead, Thunhorst has taken a few peeks to the inside, just can't get the grip he fully needs on the exit. In fact, he's starting to get checked up on the exit by Shepherd.
And we talked about how no one really passes J.R. Shepherd once he gets out front. There's going to be a time when it's too late in this race maybe to make those big moves. You can see just how close Thunhorst is to the rear bumper of J.R. Shepherd. Eventually, you can't just run the same pace lap after lap after lap after lap of the guy in front of you. Eventually, you have to make that move. If you get to lap 90, it might be too late at that point. You might not have the tire and rubber left under you to make that quality move to get J.R. Shepherd out of the inside lane and make the pass. You need to, once you feel faster with we're coming down the final 40 laps in the next couple of laps. So eventually that move has to be made. He's been on the rear bumper of the 98. Eventually, probably within the next 20 laps, you have to go, okay, I need to make that move now. Time is going to start running out.
Tick-tock indeed on the clock. As Thunhorst again matching line for line, trying to utilize a lot of that banking. Again, not able to make the move quite yet. Just continuing to match the speeds. How about within a couple 100s last time by? This time, Thunhorst with a good corner exit. Tries to bubble his way to the bottom. Shepherd again slams the door.
And Shepherd just doesn't seem quite as comfortable on corner entry to me than Matthew Thunhorst. Shepherd checks up a bit on both entry and exit. That rear end has wiggled, I think, a little bit more than Thunhorst, so I don't know if that's a sign of the rear tires wearing out or if Shepherd just isn't quite as comfortable at this speed on this tire going into the corner. But you can still see two very distinctly different lines. Shepherd still hugging that white line. Thunhorst just working a little bit higher, arcing off the exit a little bit more. These two drivers with different driving styles on these older tires, but Shepherd here still looks like he's just trying to set a pace and just be comfortable, and Thunhorst is now pushing the issue a little bit to get Shepherd at least a little bit uncomfortable.
36 to go this time by. More lap traffic they are approaching as well. Bruce Pearson, Joe Sagawa are just up the road. It's going to get intriguing once they reach that mark as well in the next few laps. So it's going to get busy on this racetrack. Thunhorse looking to try and make an hour-pouncing move before they get there again. Nearly getting to the left rear quarter panel again, takes a peek. This time of the apron, bobbles his way around and saves it.
Oh man, Thunhorse lost a ton of time there. J.R. Shepherd slammed the door on Matthew Thunhorse, and it took a little bit of a ways through the corner for Thunhorse to eventually need to save the car. Eventually, though, if Thunhorse gets back up to Shepherd and we stay green, Shepherd will have to give him this line. A lot of speed by Thunhorse on exit. He's got just a smidge. He's not really there, but he's kind of there. The 98 kind of slides down. I think Thunhorse almost got to the inside wall, and that's what jarred him the most there. But eventually, if you're J.R. Shepherd, these tires are going to get so old, and Thunhorse is going to have to make that move. You're going to have to give him that lane and deal with the consequences if the 8 can catch back up.
And keep in mind, as they're all fighting, Justin Morton is starting to chip away at the gap between himself and Austin Belke, too. So he is coming. He is quicker than the race leaders, in fact, with how they're scrapping.
And this will get extremely interesting because Joe Segala and Bruce Pearson are battling for the 9th position. Remember, there is no qualifying in the Bootleg Racing League Grand National Series. Not only are these two fighting for a position on track, they're fighting for a starting position next week. Every position matters, and when you're a leader and you come up against drivers fighting for that spot, this is a meaningful spot in 9th place if a caution comes out. These guys are still going to drive you hard. This is not a freebie lap car pass like we see a lot sometimes.
A little bit dicey here with the traffic. Bruce Pearson, it was close. J.R. Shepherd now close with Joe Segala. Thunhorse nearly slides up into both of them, in fact. Trying to keep his time up, stays within 3/10 as he rides the bottom this time, and Austin Belke is back there. All of this has allowed Justin Morton to also reel them back in by 3/10 as a result of the checkups.
And we have under 30 laps to go, and this bears the question, who has been saving their stuff? Who has been saving that right front tire and will have the most dynamic entry into the corner because they have the most grip left over in that right front tire? Has someone like an Austin Belke, a Justin Morton, even Mike Holloway lurking back in 5th, have enough to make moves as we get later on into this race? When you expect a long green flag run and you prepare for it, sometimes that can be beneficial against your competitors, and you have the ability to keep pace and keep your tires fresher. That pays dividends in the end. Mike Holloway, though, having a plethora of issues with the lap cars, he finally gets around Bruce Pearson, and now the 99 of James Lowe is starting to catch up to him as well. So Lowe will start to fight for a top 5 here eventually.
Yeah, this is getting very busy with 25 laps to go. There is that battle indeed you're referring to with Lowe trying to reel in Holloway. Holloway going all the way nearly to the wall this time through 1 and 2. Lowe taking advantage to the inside. Move James Lowe back inside the top 5. A familiar spot for him in this series.
It's been a long day for James Lowe. He's like, why can't I just get a caution? I know I'm faster than these guys. I just need a caution to re-rack them because now James Lowe is 2 seconds behind Justin Morton. He's still running times comparable to your leaders, but whew, he's got a lot of room to make up if he wants even one more position in the next 23 laps. Meanwhile, your top 4 continue to kind of slinky closer to one another. Shepherd and Thunhorse still have that same gap that they had like 10-15 laps ago. Thunhorse had recovered from that near spin. But Justin Morton is pushing the issue on Austin Belke. Justin Morton last time by ran the fastest lap by about half a tenth. So that 9 car still has a lot of speed and now looks to make the move on Austin Belke.
Thunhorse again got a little bit loose in this grouping as we take a look from Belke's group, or view I should rather say. And it's the matter of, can Morton get a run on Belke to get himself up to the race lead battle as well? So 20 laps to go. Battles for 1st and 3rd getting heavy.
The top 4 is there. These guys will all have a chance for this win. It's going to depend on who saved the most tires. And for the past 6.5 seasons now, we all know that J.R. Shepherd has been the master of tire conservation. His one issue, though, is the fact that he has been teaching everyone else how to do it, too. This is a very great group of guys. They all chat a lot, they all have fun a lot, and they all share a lot as well to make each other better drivers. And so while J.R. Shepherd has been great, he has helped these other drivers step up their games as well. So these drivers continue to get closer and closer in skill level to one another. And now Austin Belke getting a little bit loose. You're starting to see the tire wear really start to pick up on these guys. And that line that you don't want to jump over between in control and completely out of nowhere, I think we might have contact there between the 9 and the 24. That line is getting smaller and smaller as we come down to the final 16 laps of this race.
No contact, but there was a drift from Belke that has now shuffled him back to 4th. And now it gets interesting with 16 to go. Morton needs to close up 7/10 to get back to the rear bumper of Thunhorst.
Yeah, Morton lost a lot of time there. He will need an extra oomph out of his right front and right rear tires to make up this gap. He's still been one of the faster cars on track, the 3rd fastest last time by, and this time by the fastest car on track, but only by a few thousandths of a second. He needs to pick up the pace. Whatever he has left in that car, he's going to need to unleash in the next 5 laps against Shepherd and Thunhorst.
And I'm curious, is there going to be enough tire for Thunhorst to be able to pounce here? He's tried to make a move at least 4 or 5 times, and now he taps the wall. The Sawwall Morton, he's been having the opportunity to save a little bit until recently. Now he's got his opportunity to push.
And Thunhorst has been staring at the rear bumper of that Ford in front of him for like 3/4 of this race. He's like, I'm getting sick of seeing this 98 car on the corner of this bumper staring at me all race long, but he just cannot seem anymore with about 12 laps to go to reel in that rear bumper like he was earlier on in the race. If he does not have that extra oomph to make that pass, that 8 car is not going to catch back up to the 98.
Morton is there, by the way. He's been running a 1/10 of a second quicker than the race leaders to close in. 11 to go.
I think both of these drivers are going to need help. The 9 has to make this move fast. 10 laps to go this time by. And Justin Morton continues to run the same pace as the top 4. The entire top 4 is running the same pace, but Belke has started to fall back after that lap traffic. So the top 3 checking out, and the 8 of Matthew Thunhorst squeaking up the track. I think he's starting to lose that tire. He'll give up the spot to Justin Morton. Thunhorst and Morton share the same channel. They share the same communications. Thunhorst might have said, I'm not catching up to the 98. Justin, if you have anything left, go get him.
And now this is going to be a big moment. Morton may have 1 or 2 shots here to get this job done. 8 to go. Needs to close up 4/10. Closes up 1/10 on exit alone.
Last time by, he was 4 1/1000ths of a second faster. This last time by, 0.12 seconds faster, over a 1/10 of a second gained last time by. Morton looks like he still has a little bit of gas in that tank.
2/10 now the separation. And Morton's able to utilize a different line, trying to dive in the corner. Gets a good run. Shepherd starting to back up his corner once more, checking up Morton a touch. Morton tries to peek his way to the bottom, 6 to go.
And you can see how ferociously Morton is still working that wheel down the straightaways. Typically you just hold it straight, but you can really see down the straightaway, he's still having to kind of bob it left and right like he's an actor on TV driving a fake car. Going back and forth, just trying to maximize this car's speed on exit. 5 laps to go. Does Justin Morton have anything left? Almost identical times last time, and Shepherd has an issue off of 2.
Side by side now for the lead, coming to 4 to go. Morton gets pitched down by Shepherd. He gets loose, has to correct his car, forced to go back single file. Morton may have a couple more shots to do this with 3.5 laps to go.
Justin Morton is entering the corner of turn 1 so high, remains high in 3 and 4. It really helps him launch here on corner exit. gained back up to the rear bumper of the 98. Look how high he is. He's an entire car width, a full lane above the 98, cuts all the way back down the track and gains down the back straightaway. 2 to go this time by. Can he make the move for the win? Lap traffic coming up.
And it's Donnie Moore in 7th position who is having problems. Now it's going to be interesting where that car comes into play. Back single file as Moore goes all the way into the outside wall to let them on go. White flag is out. Final lap from 5 flags.
Morton will have to send it here into 1. The 98 gets into the wall, checks up the 9. Justin Morton, though, losing a lot of time on exit.
Morton has 1 shot to do it. Again, Shepard to the wall. Morton sends it hard. Not able to get to the bumper. J.R. Shepard holds on to win it at 5 flags.
Man, how cool was that onboard watching Justin Morton work that car, attempting to make the final push. And we seldom see J.R. Shepard make mistakes. He had about 3 there because of how hard Justin Morton and Matthew Thunhorst pushed him throughout the race. But man, even pushed to their limits, J.R. Shepard still gets the better. Brings home the win here at 5 flags. What a race. Justin, I think the entire top 4 gave literally everything that they had there in a race that went wire to wire, 100 laps of green flag racing.
A very impressive race indeed tonight. Post-race coverage coming up in just a few moments. You're watching the BRL's Grand National Series presented by Gargamel's Kitchen. Welcome back to the GSRC's coverage of BRL's Grand National Series action presented by Gargamel's Kitchen. As it was an exciting finish to say the very least here tonight. In the end though, it's J.R. Shepard who holds on for the victory by 0.2 of a second over Justin Morton. Matthew Thunhorst rounds out the top 3. We'll be speaking with those drivers in just a few moments. Austin Belke, Mike Holloway round out the top 5 with James Lowe rounding up the lead lap cars. Donnie Moore, Brian Dean, Bruce Pearson, Joe Sagawa round out your top 10 tonight, Devin.
Adam Shane brings it home in the 11th position with Todd Liston in 12th. Kurt Smith rounds out your 13-car field here at Five Flag Speedway.
Some exciting action, to say the very least, tonight, as the drivers have a lot to celebrate about after that thrilling battle for the race lead and how things fared out indeed here, Devin. It was an intriguing night, to say the least.
Yeah, it was just... I honestly believe that we saw the best out of every single driver there, because they went all out. I think that we saw everything that everyone had to a T. That was so much fun to watch, and everyone in the YouTube chat was great. It sounds like there was some exploding living rooms, which is always a ton of fun. So glad to have you guys watch that along with us, because like you said, Justin, that was a fun one.
Absolutely, and you have to give credit to Matthew Thunhorst as well in the battle for position. He fought hard for 80 laps or so to be able to battle for that race lead. He now joins us in the broadcast booth. Matthew, do you have a copy?
Yes, sir.
First things first, a tough battle between you and J.R. Shepard. Talk us through it, as you tried several times to make the move for the race lead.
Well, there were a couple times I got him. I don't know, I feel 4 times that I got in there, but 2 I was clearly in there, and that's where, if you all are watching it, he started getting the wiggling going on because we made contact, and it's just he drives hard, I mean, part of the thing that he does is that he likes to save his stuff, and then trying to get around him, you tear your stuff up, and it's kind of his MO where, I like running away, and it's, you're going to catch me if you're going to get me, but it's just kind of his thing. And he has this thing where if you try to get in there, he's really good on braking, so he'll try to beat you in there. And twice he didn't beat me, and it was, if I wanted to, I had him dead to rights just to absolutely spin him out, but I don't want to do something like that, because one, it looks dirty, and 2, it's just, then you get a reputation. So it's a little frustrating on that part where, it'd be one thing too if I was trying to dive bomb, and and I try to avoid that ever since I had that issue last season. And if I did that and I get him, then yeah, I'm dirty, or I'm being a bad racer. But it's just, I don't know. I'm rambling, so.
Understood, but overall, it was a fun night of racing action, to say the very least. Green pretty much the entire way for tonight. How challenging was that run, and overall to battle with the track itself as well?
I mean, compared to what we did here last season, I mean, this was a great race, and the guys did a really good job. The whole field did on putting on a good show. So, I mean, the hard thing is that, you're, especially when you're in an intense battle like that for, probably 30 minutes, which is probably the run time that I think would have been, about 80 laps in there. And you're leaving everything on the table. So it's just, that mental fatigue, and even, a little bit of physical, because I know there about probably lap 50, I was starting to feel my padding in between my thumb and my finger ache, because I was just gripping the wheel so hard. And because you just, especially when you're going up against guys like Justin and Austin and JR, it's just, you can't leave anything on the table, and you got to be perfect. And every mistake is just, it's a real challenge to try to keep everything together. So
an absolute challenge indeed. Next race goes over once more for the next event to South Boston. A thrilling finish the last time we were there. Your thoughts on South Boston?
Yeah, I hope we put on another good one there, but yeah, hopefully I just don't come up a couple inches short again on that one. So, but hopefully we put on another good race, and we have a lot of green running, and have good battles throughout the field. So, I look forward to that one. But had fun tonight. A little frustration, but overall, a bad night like tonight I take that any day of the week, because it's still a great race and fun racing overall. So,
anyone you want to thank for the run tonight?
Yeah, just Lowell, Gargamel's Kitchen, and BRL for just putting the show together for us, and y'all for broadcasting. So, a lot of thanks for everything y'all do, and appreciate the fact that y'all either support us or, broadcast us. So, thank you, everybody involved.
Once again, that's Matthew Thunhorst coming away in third tonight. Justin Morning came away in second. He had a whole living room of children at a birthday party cheering him on. He's with Devin Henry.
Yeah, Justin Morton blew up the Seneca living room today, I think. There's going to be some massive cleanup at that house. But besides that, I think the reason why is because the miraculous run that Justin Morton put on from fourth to second. Justin, you saved your stuff. You got up to JR and just didn't quite have enough with this short track and 100 laps of green racing. But take me through your entire strategy throughout that race. You laid back, you had your opportunity, you got to second. I know it wasn't enough, but it looked like the strategy was there from the very beginning.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say it was there from the very beginning. I had a pretty rough start there behind, I think it was Todd. I think that was it. He didn't get a very good jump, and I got stuck behind him. I got just pinned on the outside. So I had a lot of ground to make up there. I knew I had to be conservative and smart about my driving that I've learned from the years of driving in BRL. Yeah, it just paid off eventually. Got to Austin first. He was running pretty hard. Managed to get my way around him pretty easily. I got to Matt next. He got really tight. He probably let me by pretty easy there. Trying to just make sure he held on to third at least. So yeah, it was pretty good racing.
And Matthew kind of talked about the physical fatigue of trying to grip a wheel like that against these really fierce competitors. And I know it's just sim racing, but there is a physical fatigue to it. But take me through the mental fatigue of going 100 laps of green flag racing at a very stressful half mile, trying to get that win. It really looked like you put it all out there by the end of that race.
Yeah, I was out of breath at the end of that race. I think I was holding my breath for the last 10 laps trying to make that move on JR. Yeah, it's definitely will fatigue you if you aren't like really used to it. Matt and JR, they did the previous race before this. I've been kind of taken off the quote unquote support races for this. That's kind of helped me there, but yeah, it's definitely fatiguing and it can be mentally fatiguing too.
Well, you put on a great show. Who do you have to thank for winding up here second place tonight at Five Flags?
Yeah, I'd like to thank my team, Toll Downforce Racing. Love the group of guys. Pixel Dust for the great paint. Garmingel's Kitchen for picking up and sponsoring us this season. Lowell for running this great league, and thank you guys for doing the amazing broadcast.
All right, and before we let you go, can you give a shout out to your fan club over in the Seneca living room? It sounds like they were all screaming Justin Morton as you're making that run. Can we get a shout out?
Yeah, I like to thank my fan club that I didn't know I had until now. I looked at the Discord right after and saw that. That was pretty funny.
Justin Morton brings it home in second. He's got about a dozen new fans out there here after a great run at Five Flags. Well, we'll take a look now at your winner, J.R. Shepard. It wasn't an easy one. He earned this one, Justin, taking the win at Five Flags.
Yes, indeed. And JR, first things first, talk us through not only having to defend off one driver, but two over the course of this race tonight.
Yeah, it's never easy when you got to race Matt and Justin, and Justin did one heck of a job. I knew that, it sounded like he had a rough start, but I knew that he was going to be saving his tires once he settled in, and he's always good at the end of the race here. So my hat's off to Justin for sure, because if it had been a few laps more, he would have got me. He clearly got to the inside of me before entry one time, and just because of the exit, I was able to hold him off, but a few more laps, he'd have probably had it.
It was definitely an intriguing battle, to say the very least. Interested in your approach as well on how you try and defend, because it's talked a little bit by Matthew Thunhorst where he likes to try and pull away. He referred to your method as trying to save your stuff and force drivers to get around. How would you describe that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about forcing them to get around. I don't change anything that I'm doing when they're behind me, but I'm definitely trying to save the tires. I'm not trying to pull away and get a big lead. And yeah, I don't know. It sounded like he was upset a little bit, but he was never inside of me before braking. There was a couple of times he lunged in there and caught me off guard, but once I'm turned in and under braking, I don't know what else I can really do to avoid any kind of contact. So not sure what to do about that, but yeah, I was trying to save my stuff. This is one of my worst tracks. I suck here. I just can't seem to get the car to rotate in the long run.
Well, you're able to do enough to hold on for a majority of this race to lead those laps tonight. Next race goes to South Boston. Of course, the last time it was a thrower between you and Matthew. Your thoughts on going to Sobo once more?
It's going to be extremely, extremely tough to pass, especially if the setups or anything that we've had this season. So I outside line seems to be a place you can make work if people are side by side. But I think ultimately the bottom is probably going to be the best way once you get single filed. So kind of gonna be interesting how restarts and stuff play out, and just try to get yourself in the best position you can.
Anyone you want to thank for the run tonight?
Yeah, just absolutely thanks to the Bootleg Racing League for allowing us to do this. I think we had quite a few people watching tonight. Hopefully it was a decent show for them, and thank you to Different Path Motorsports, and of course to everything that GSRC does for us. We really appreciate the job that you guys do for us, guys. Thank you.
Congratulations once more on the victory, JR.
Thank you, guys.
J.R. Shepard, your race winner tonight. I'd like to thank him, Justin Morning, and Matthew Thunhorse for taking the time to speak to us during post-race coverage. Now, Devin, your final thoughts on this one, because it was a barn burner with several battles for the race lead and several heated battles on the mid-pack.
Well, I think I want to dissect a little bit deeper into what Matthew Thunhorse and J.R. Shepard were talking about. Obviously, I mentioned earlier in the broadcast that Thunhorse is going to be frustrated because he spent 3/4 of the race staring at this gray bumper. Nothing gets worse than that. And, you try to dive down there, and I think that it comes down to, we had this conversation on Twitter for the past couple of weeks about what is short track racing. Is short track racing this entity where you have to be able to pass without any contact whatsoever? And in some places in the world, it is. Or is short track racing banging doors, bumping bumpers, and going elbows up 24/7? And in other parts of the world, that is short track racing. And in this world of iRacing, you have these two different mentalities come together. And I think that when Matthew Thunhorse said that that J.R. Shepard forces you to get around him, I don't think he necessarily means that in a negative way. It's kind of like the Ryan Newman comparisons, right? He has a very wide rear bumper that you have to get around. But the way that J.R. Shepard, I think, runs his lines makes it instinctually difficult to get around him because of the way that he saves his tires. And that becomes extremely frustrating when it was obvious that the 8 was the faster car at times, whether that's because the 98 was relaxing and setting a specific pace or not. The 8 was the faster car at some moments and couldn't get around the 98 because the 98 isn't going to give you any slack when racing for the lead. But at the end of the day, they weren't banging each other. There was no dirty moves. In my mind, that is all good short track racing, as a paraphrase to what Joey Logano might say. But this is iRacing. These Arkman Art Series cards, they hate contact in the slightest. They love to whip around if there's even the slightest little bit of bumper hitting. I think both drivers are in the right. I think both drivers are both respectable and respecting drivers out on the track. And at the end of the day, the 98 had the edge on the 8 by getting to the lead first. I don't think that any feelings were hurt or anything like that. I think it was just some really great short track racing that you love to see here in the Bootleg Racing League Grand National Series.
Very solid points indeed on that. On that note, we'd like to thank you for tuning into tonight's exciting action from Five Flags. I'd like to thank the Bootleg Racing League and Garth Kitchen for this exciting series. We'd also like to thank the companies who provide the software and hardware for broadcasts listed on screen. But additional thanks to Jude Lawn, who provides her wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today and Devin and Sean. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, going to upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can check out our merchandise for sale at gsrc.storyviewwide.com, or you can check out our social media on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global SimRacing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Don't forget to head over to YouTube page and hit that big red subscribe button as well as the notification bell so you don't miss a moment of the Global SimRacing Channel. Next race could be a thriller. South Boston Speedway, July 31st. Coverage starts at 8:50 p.m. Eastern Time. Green flag scheduled approximately 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Be sure to tune in. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on screen, so be sure to check those out and mark them down in your calendar. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.